I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep. Till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep. Till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep. Till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep. Till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep. Till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me. Ain't no stopping me.
U.S. forces captured Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro and his wife during a high-stakes military operation that played out during the early hours of January 3rd.
It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice.
After the raid, Maduro was taken to the USS Iwo Jima and began moving toward the U.S., where he will face criminal charges. Operation Absolute Resolve was months.
USS what?
Trump had authorized the CIA to conduct covert action inside Venezuela, and the Pentagon deployed a massive amount of combat power to the Caribbean starting in August. Officials said intelligence agencies played a key role in pinning Maduro down.
After months of work by our intelligence teammates to find Maduro and understand how he moved, where he lived, where he traveled, what he ate, what he wore, what were his pets. In early December, our force was set pending a series of aligned events.
On the night of the attack, more than 150 aircraft launched from 20 different bases across the Western Hemisphere. The strike package included B-1 bombers, F-35, F-22, and F-18 fighter jets, and EA-18 Growler electronic warfare planes. Those aircraft attacked Venezuela's air defenses and provided cover for U.S. Special Forces who entered the country in helicopters, riding just 100 feet above the ground.
We arrived at Maduro's compound at 1:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time or 2:01 a.m. Caracas local time. On arrival into the target area, the helicopters came under fire, and they replied with that fire with overwhelming force in self-defense. Maduro and his wife, both indicted, gave up.
Yeah, I mean, what was it, 88 minutes?
Oh, it was like Control-Alt-Delete. That's basically what happened. Oh, you got new toys? So do we.
We got newer ones, and they're bigger, and they're better.
Scarier.
America. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, I still want to know exactly how they did it. Now, of course, most of that we're probably never going to know because it's an operation that was under tight wraps. Not even Congress knew what was going on, you know, but it was clear as to why they did it that way. But anyways, welcome to Rise of Middle America. I'm AK, your favorite guy, along here with Scrapjaw tonight. Dominion voting is back in the news and looks like it's made a turn for the worst. Then we conclude our 3-part series on past, present, and future regime change as Roma Nation starts now.
I'm hiding on you, so lonely. I'm hiding on you, so lonely.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Rise of Middle America. I am AK. That is Scrapjaw. We're going to jump right into it, but please make sure you go to riseofmiddleamerica.com. Check out our lineup of podcasts from history to news, pop culture, true crime. We've got a show for all your needs. We also got a Discord where all the magic happens. If you want to be a podcast host, producer, researcher, or writer, dude, just join the Discord. Like, I shouldn't have to I do this spiel every single week. Just don't join the Discord. Come hang out with us. Talk with us. Let's see what you got going. All right. At the top, on the upper right-hand corner of the page is our socials. And at the bottom is our merch site. Where are you at? There we go. We've got all of our latest in Roma fashion. So please like, comment, subscribe. Hit that notification button so you don't miss a moment of the action.
And
what you got?
stick around for promo codes for grass-fed, all natural beef tallow, USDA organic products from our sponsors.
Absolutely.
Them salty roots, son.
Yeah, I know.
Helps me hide all of my lizard man scales. You know, you gotta stay under wraps.
That's right. I got my God damn, why is it always does this at this time? Let me see. Ooh, can you see me? Light, maybe. Let me see.
We need to upgrade our
How
camera.
do I look? No, it's probably
Manual
it's probably
focus
dirty
on
lens or whatnot. But yeah, so without further ado, let's rant.
Also, some developments out of Georgia with the FBI visiting an election office in a county that investigated President Trump over his election fraud lies a few years back. The Bureau calling this a court-authorized law enforcement activity. That's the FBI statement in Fulton County, Georgia. Fulton County. We're like, okay, that's ringing a bell. That is vaguely familiar to me. Remind me why I know about Fulton County. It's because the context here is critically important. You may remember that Fulton County was one of the 4 criminal investigations into the president. They were leading one of those investigations. That case was dismissed in November, but it focused on a call that the president had with Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, this now infamous call where the president asked to, quote, find the votes.
All I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
Okay, pause. I'm pretty sure there was a lot more context to that. But of course, media has to have their day. So
It'd be nice to see if there's some kind of discovery that could happen to get the rest of that call.
I'm pretty sure that call is out there.
It's got to be.
It's definitely got to be out there now, especially with everything that's gone on and transpired over the past 4 years. But this was ground zero. Okay, before Michigan, before Pennsylvania, before Nevada, before all this stuff, came to fruition, Georgia was the first, right? Because there were a lot of whistleblowers that were down there that decided to give up information about what was going on. And whether it's true or not, again, it's not in court yet, but it's about to be in court. And a lot of the things that he stated that happened, especially with who is it? Giuliani, and who's the MyPillow guy?
Mike Lindell.
Yeah, Mike Lindell, and
He's
all
trying to trigger me. He's trying to trigger me right now, people. We're going back down to some of these rabbit holes that we about broke my ankles back in 2020. Oh,
dude, it was bad. It was bad. And the thing is that, back then, the problem was that there wasn't enough time, right? Because nothing like this had ever been tried or done on the scale that it needed to be done within a certain amount of time. There was no way they were going to be able to do that. They kind of had to just accept the inevitable and then ride off into the sunset. But this is where it all started. And I remember I was looking up a couple of videos that were sent to me of someone that was going through all the votes. They got a FOIA request. They were able to get in and get all the information on a flash drive. And they were pulling it up to see, because I think the flash drive had the photos of the votes, not necessarily who voted, but with the serial numbers from each ballot cast. And they're all in different envelopes in different folders, right? Because each folder represents a batch. And each batch is inside of a folder, which also represents one of the machines. So each machine had its own folder.
yep.
And what they did was they cross-referenced every single vote in that state.
Here's how it worked. A guy was like, we think, and then for the YouTube censors out there, we are not drawing any conclusions. We're just stating other people's opinions and how things turned out. We're just kind of treading some backstory here. The thought was this, and the accusations from the pro-Trump side were that there was that these machines were manipulating the votes, or there was somebody was either manually rescanning stuff in, which is something we think we might have saw on video with them standing. There's a couple of ladies late night that were sharing stacks of what looked like stacks of ballots, allegedly. I remember watching it all live with whistleblowers, the press conferences. Yeah, and years later, and I think it was only like last year, year before, finally a FOIA request got the images of these ballots when they were scanned. It's just like your old scan. People don't remember
Yep.
scanning scanners anymore unless you were in an office space and you're scanning documents. But like, they're literally the images of these documents, and it's even worse than. And what's interesting is it's two things that this guy came up with when he put all of these FOIA requested images. There's no voter data on them. It's just the ballots. A couple of things popped up that he said were fishy. One, it looked like there was evidence of multiple rescans of the same ballots. And two, that there were duplicate files that had been manipulated as well. Meaning, like, on one hand, you've got potentially somebody just throwing the same piece of paper back through the machine, and maybe not over and over at the same time, but running a whole batch and then running that same batch in another machine. So what you end up with is two batches in different machines of the same pieces of paper. So it's plausible, kind of like, that way you don't have sequential documents looking the same, and that they could see that there were basically the same file because the image was the same itself. So we're talking about two things. We're talking about the same picture in one sense, like the same paper that's in multiple pictures, and also multiple pictures been copied and then the metadata changed for the timestamps.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes sense that somebody would attempt to do that only if they would have somehow, there had to be some other piece there, because if there's some mechanism to check to make sure that at the beginning and the end that everything was kosher, which there is a process in Fulton County where they have to check a box or sign off that this count is 0 when we start, and then this is what the count is when we ended. That way you have bookends, so nobody can pre-fill or backfill or post-fill with anything and be fudgy with it. We don't have that, and they admitted that they didn't do that. The rest of it is still in the air and suspect. And yeah, we opened up with the Maduro thing, and we'll get around to that because
this is coming full circle.
And it's also good. I'm getting QAnon like vibes in the back of my head because I know those people are out in the social media space going, "Oh, there's the plan. It's coming together." And I'm like, some of this, I'm like, maybe they're broken clocks and they're right once in a while. Some of it, I think, might be something else going on now, because there's a lot of that stuff that is actually coming out in the outcomes, not necessarily the way they said it would, but there is some fudginess that's getting looked into deeper than we were ever allowed to. And who knows what'll come of DNI being involved with the FBI raiding Fulton County with a warrant and taking all of those ballots that have been in question for 6 years now.
At least. And at least they keep their ballots, right? There's some states that don't.
Well, each state is tasked with, their own election process, and
Right. So the first thing I have to say is that, this should have been Trump's first move. It should have been one of his first moves. Now, obviously, you had to go and get the court order, and a judge had to allow them to be able to go down and get those ballots. Now, you have to remember, they charged his team, they charged him, they charged his lawyers, they even tried to go after his family, right?
Yep.
Because I've always said, if everybody would have just left him alone.
This is a direct quote from Biden. Allegedly, it was a misspoken thing, but I'll leave you guys to decide what this quote from Biden that Elizabeth just provided for us here is. You could probably find the video of it, but he said, we put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics. Now, cancer, medications, drugs, cognitive abilities.
We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
Thank you, Biddy, for reminding us.
Right. And what I was saying was, then they went after his family. And the thing is, I've always said this. If they would have just left him alone and let him ride off into the sunset, this wouldn't have started this whole whirlwind of conspiracy, right? It wouldn't have. But instead, what they did is they did things that were so unprecedented that even regular people were like, why are you going after him this hard? Why are you going this hard in the paint? Because you have to know something, right? That means that you have irrefutable evidence that he did something wrong. And if that's the case, then you need to be able to put that out in the open for everybody to see. The problem is they didn't do that and left up to the imagination. You don't do that with Americans. You can't do that with Americans.
No.
Because they will make their own conclusions and they will find the most asinine ways of making that happen, whether they're right or wrong. But what also ends up happening is people that normally wouldn't be a part of something like that they'll start connecting dots that they didn't know were there, and they end up being true, and then everything makes sense, and then you can no longer hide it, right? Because there's not stupid people here. There are some really smart people that know how to connect the dots. Like, that's me. I might not be able to do things great up front, but I know how to connect dots up here really well.
It's their pattern recognition.
Pattern recognition is like my all-time thing. And that's why, part of the show, I have my segments in a way to show patterns. Right? So you've got that. They could have let him right off in the sunset, and they didn't do that. But then not only did they charge him with that, but they charged him with all those other nefarious crimes, right?
37 deep or 36
30,
deep.
34. The 34 counts. That was the only one they were able to get the stick because they basically fixed that entire thing. I'm telling you right now. And if there's any lawyer that came in and said that everything that happened there was by the book, they would probably lose their bar. So, but the one thing that I do need to say here is this. Trump, you better get this right. You better get this right. Because if you are wrong, you are screwed.
You're so wrong. And we're so not back.
You are done. Like, there's no coming back from this.
We were talking earlier, and I was saying, is this how he gets his third term?
I think we're foreshadowing here.
I think there's no in between. Either he gets a third term or he's completely in the tank. I don't know.
I wish
you had one more time.
You had more time. You see that? That's a bomb. It's an incendiary device. That device is up your ass. Have you seen Burt Man on Fire? Oh my God. One of Denzel Washington's like all time. Holy crap, that movie was crazy.
Denzel's a legend.
Oh yeah, he definitely is. Scanning docs and slamming box.
That's amazing.
I'm stealing that. And I'm going to say I said it. All right. So, twice a day, but who keeps count? Yep. That was the voter fraud. Yeah. So, yeah, he needs to get this right because if he doesn't get this right, he's done.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why he's doing it because I'm pretty sure he's going to turn around and show everyone how exactly you're supposed to do this. Because if he does get this right, I can't say it yet, but we're foreshadowing into a further episode that we might do in the near future. Leave it at that. All right. So let's move on to this. This is Patrick Byrne on X. Let's see what he has to say about
He's
it.
acknowledged what has been denied for 5 years. For 5 years, Dominion's been saying we're an American company. We're an American company based in Denver. No foreign this, no foreign that. Now that we finally have painted them into a corner, which they're trying to just he's been actually for the last couple of weeks or last week arguing with a judge. You have to write the rule that Byrne can't get to ask about China, Serbia, or Venezuela because that's all been debunked. And that's clearly not going to happen. The judge isn't going to do that. They filed this. They were forced to finally answer some questions last night, and they filed this acknowledging I've had contact. If you read to like the second, I don't know if you want to close in, it actually acknowledges if I've had contact with foreigners about Dominion soft code, base code, source code, programming. I've had contact overseas. I've had contact with people in the Dominion offices in Denver that I knew to be foreigners about our source code, blah, 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 blah. It's all spelled out there. He's acknowledged what has been denied for 5 years.
No shit.
Yeah. And I was reading a little bit about it before we got up in here, and the way that the questions were asked early on about involvement with foreign countries or foreign actors, there were questions that were structured wrong, because when you're at a VP level, an executive level, speaking from experience with inside of companies now and being able to see and communicate with people up and down the chain when it comes to technology. When he's talking about U.S. operations, no, I mean, legally he can't have external contractors. Everything has to be internal. But Dominion's a company that is able to service external clients to some degree. So if he's selling, so these things here that are surfacing now, he's trying to do a COIA, cover his own backside, and say, you don't get to ask me questions about my clients in foreign countries. Basically, that's how I'm reading it, inferring from the way this is reading. Is now we're starting to find out, oh, okay, it's true. Two things can be true at the same time. On one hand, internal operations running American elections in states that have contracted with Dominion, they're not using any external anybody.
Right.
Externally, though, when they're talking to other countries like Venezuela, Serbia, or wherever, if they're sending machines to other countries, then they have to service those clients and help them. And if they're using external firms to do code and work on those machines and to build that, like dang near every company that these days that's been cutting costs, they're outsourcing their developers to all kinds of places. And you're going to have confidential conversations. You're going to have internal conversations about these machines to make sure they at least function. And that stuff can really, it's not just about having the keys to the castle. It's about knowing how the castle's built. And if other countries and other actors that want to undermine our elections, or even internal actors that are working with external actors that aren't directly acting with Dominion internally, if they know how those machines are built, which they're not hard to get, you can get them on eBay, and hackers at HackerCons have torn these things to pieces every year a new one comes out. It's not hard to mess with them. And especially if he's had some direct conversations about the inner workings of these machines and how they're set up and how to network them and all of that, it's toast. Cat's out of the bag. And we already know that a lot of those machines aren't configured to the point where they're not on the what we call the WAN, the wide area network, the wild web. You know, these things are connected to external networks through ISPs. They're not air gapped, as they say in cyber.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's a couple things to this. All right. So the first thing is that contact doesn't necessarily equal cheating, right? It's just he wants to be able to protect his clients overseas because you don't want to give up any of your. It's kind of like the CIA. You don't want to give up your hand and let people know what you're doing. It's the same thing with Maduro. You don't want to give up what you're doing to him up front so he has time to prepare and react, right?
Yeah. And
You
that's the thing with Maduro is now people are starting to talk about, well, they were using Dominion machines in Venezuela. His election had an F chart. If we know what the F chart is, where the counts are like this, and then the lower count goes up and over, and it forms an F with the two of them. You look up F chart in 2020,
Yeah.
you'll find it.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's like at the last minute or at certain points in the election counting process, you see in the reporting these like it just spikes. And not like, oh, we counted a new batch and you have a little bump. We have a new batch and a little bump, a new batch and a little bump. It's like bump.
Yeah, it's like a
Through the
massive
roof.
bump.
It's huge. So that's the stuff that, and what we're saying here is that these are weird things that were brought up early on. These are weird things that happened, and there was a lot of allegations made early on that were never able to come to court. And over the last 6 years, we've had like hearing after or charges filed back and forth, lawfare, legal warfare back and forth between Trump people and anybody but Trump, like and the never Trumpers and the people in charge of all of these things. And eventually they've had to admit to not having chain of custody. That's the thing that is at stake here at the very least. Who cares if all of those votes were good? They didn't provide proper chain of custody to 315,000 votes in Fulton County. And that's the main reason why the FBI is probably there, is like something huge happened. And at the very least, you guys did not have chain of custody with these ballots. And because you guys have failed at such a scale, we're now going to investigate it on a different level. And who knows what Trump knows at this point.
And here's the thing. They can't destroy the votes if, say, they were. Because if they did, then the numbers would be way off, and then you'd have a more serious problem that they're going to have to answer for.
Yep.
Right? So, when you've got, the Fannie Willis situation and with Nathan Wade and Loverboy and meeting up at the White House and all this stuff is starting to connect. Of course, back then you couldn't connect it because you didn't have all of this information. Right.
Yeah.
So essentially people were saying, because we can't connect the dots, that means it's all untrue. Everything has to be all together in our face. We have to be tied to a chair with toothpicks in our eyes and basically with a gun to our head saying, okay, say this or die. And that's how you're going to like.
But they would never accept it at this point. I don't think the people that are totally never Trump will ever accept whatever truth comes out of it. If it supports their bias and the current consensus, they'll just shove it in our face. If it comes back around the other way, they're gonna cry foul. Oh, Trump's this dictator, and they've cooked the books, and he's just running a Gestapo scheme and throwing people up, in jail over all this stuff. It's going to be a mess either way. And that's why I was saying earlier, either Trump's going to get a third term or it's going to be all bad. Like he's either going to become lame duck or he's going to become King Trump out of this somehow. At least I'm being kind of hyperbolic, but imagine if it is true. If it does come to pass that at least Fulton County gets busted, and then they get to just go through everything. And then it opens the floodgates, because the floodgates are technically open now because of standing. Before it was you didn't have standing because of nothing has happened before the election, and then after the election you don't have standing because it's already done and over with. And then you have the United States Constitution, which has no provisions for what happens we find out a whole election is fraudulent, all we have provisions for you get 2 terms in office, and Trump has technically got 2 terms in office already. And once the election is certified and whoever's president is president, like our Constitution has barriers so that way we don't end up in constant cycles of civil war like other countries do. But we're hitting into some uncharted territory potentially here, so we're going to keep track of this.
I honestly, yeah. I honestly feel like you said, you were absolutely right on a couple of things. You know, number one, about the machines, somebody has to have access to this system if there's a problem.
Right. If there's some kind of remote management software built in, like all of these kinds of systems have it, you know, any kind of corporate enterprise grade hardware. There are what we call SLAs, service level agreements. That's like, if thing goes wrong, we will address this within timely manner at this level. And I want to know who had SLAs, service level agreements to fix these things. Was it on-site IT people? Was it state level people that were trained? How was the full configuration of these things? We saw stuff with the Lindell thing in the cyber symposium. The only thing that was sketchy, and I'm gonna be careful how much I say here because I was tracking it pretty close, and I was flying close to the sun during the symposium. Somebody dropped an image of one of those ballot machines, hard drives, from Colorado, and she, I think, got in some trouble for it. She was the county commissioner or auditor or somebody. I forget what her title was, but she showed up at the symposium, had an image of it, and then that image ended up on the internet, and people started digging through it. It was a forensic copy. It was locked in a read-only state. It did have all of those things, and I'm just going to say I know it did because I know it did and not because of anything else. There was some weird stuff that guys found in that where there were certain scripts that were written, certain things that changed a lot of the configurations in that system in ways that were kind of odd and awkward, didn't make sense for securing a machine, that made it less secure rather than more secure. But at the same time, we don't know exactly where that machine sat in the full network of machines and where it was in, like, if there was some other box that controlled that network or anything. And we're getting into the weeds on cyber stuff here, and this is kind of like one of my favorite things to do. And I'm going to save you some time by just saying, look, there was weird stuff we saw, but we can't verify. We've seen a lot of little crumbs get dropped along the way and bits and pieces of things that could be evidence of something bigger, but without the full picture, without a full forensic go through. And 6 years later, who knows what condition all of those things are in and what the original configurations were. Are there backups to restore it to the condition to where it was in 2020 during the election? We don't know.
You don't know.
That's the biggest frustration.
But that's the problem. Like I said before, if you would have just let this all go to pasture, we wouldn't be talking about this right now. But instead, you had to attack him, you had to attack his team, you had to attack everybody.
Yeah.
But yet you didn't have an answer. And
Giuliani
so now
didn't help.
Oh, no,
And
he
and
definitely
none of the
didn't.
lawyers helped. The whole Kraken thing was a snafu. Those are the people that made me so mad, is when they were filing their claims, their lawsuits and things. You got me tonight, AK. You got me. You got your content, sir.
This is what I love to do. I love to just pick at the things that I know he's
It
going
made
to
me so
explode
mad
on.
about the way way things went down, and they just cut their own noses off to spite their face when they should have done. They were scrambling. To be fair, you're right.
That's what I was saying, is that they just didn't have enough time. There was no way that they were going to mount a case that big over the course of the entire country. Even if you were to cut that down to the three main swing states, right? That's a gargantuan effort. That would take tens of thousands of people to do. You don't have resources for tens of thousands of people in a short span. That's billions of dollars that need to be spent in order to do so. Even if you had the luxury of the United States government to do so, who are you going to get to run all that stuff? It would take you 2 months just to figure out who's going to do what, and then go afterwards. You just didn't have that type of time, But does this constitute as discovery?
It's right. It's not discovery right now. Discovery in a legal sense, or like, or
Can they
what?
now basically just ransack and look at whatever they want at this point?
I think if there are federal or the international implications, I think DNI that level, and usually DNI just has like oversight and has some. They're big. The big things that they're involved in is transferring information between agencies. They kind of are the control on that, or have oversight on what can and how. They also have oversight over securing elections, and so. But usually that's not the director level involvement. If Tulsi's here in the middle of all of it and she's got direct, I'm watching this. That means that there's obvious external actors going on because she's the big dog. The programming for them is something funny. Dominion out of Toronto. Oh, almost always fragments. Yeah. Yeah. This whole thing is huge at this point. To the point of your question, is this discovery? Can they ransack, through whatever? I think what Trump is trying to do is two things. Is on one hand, he's like, I want everything, but he's got people. He's like, but do it by the book. Make sure you give them no quarter on either end of the spectrum of this. And run. We have all of the things now at this point. We have access to the stuff on the inside, and he's probably still getting ran, roughshod internally, internal actors, external actors, all of it. That's probably why also he's assigning guys like Tom Homan to do things for him, to go in and be directly involved. Like his top level people are all over this election stuff. The ICE stuff is not about illegal immigrants. It's about election stuff. The things going on. Immigration is about elections. Let's just be honest. It's about flooding our country with illegal votes. That's exactly what it is. And it's about and Trump's personal beef, trying to prove that we were hoodwinked in 2020. That's what he's after. Those are the two things of trying to correct that. So thank you, Kimberly. Those are the things that Trump's after right now. It was made very apparent and clear to me when people started freaking out, and I was even one of those people that had a little crash out when he pulled Bovino out of Minnesota. But at the same time, he sent Tom Homan in and was like, it's on. He's not letting up. He's absolutely not letting up. Whether or not we get proof out of this, if they're burning the receipts in the back end, and who knows? Yeah, the votes in the money funnels. All of this stuff is huge. USAID, but there's still things that there's losing battles on. I mean, they're still funding the NED or whatever it is. These other things he's having to play ball and let them have some of the things that they want internally in Congress and the Senate, and it's messy, and we have to be careful about the optics or the way that optics are being played on us, because they're trying to do two things at the same time. One, play us into their hand, and play Trump into their hand with overt force. They want the Insurrection Act. I was also calling for it at one point too, but I'm like, wait, that's what they want. They want this dictator Trump image to come to fruition, so that way they can say, look, see, he's a Gestapo and blah blah blah. But he's playing them all the way up to the line, and he's letting them show their own backsides. And
exactly.
I think the big key here is if he continues to do that and they're not getting what they want, they're going to overplay their hand to try to get it.
It says, Call says, if he pulls out of Minnesota, but gets all the illegals in blue cities in Blue City's jails and crime database, it's a big win.
Yeah. I mean, either way, what Trump's doing right now is either A, going to stop them from being able to do again what they did before, at the bare minimum, or he's going to get the full everything. It's either, there's some wins that are going to happen, but it's a mess, and we're going to have to keep tracking it. We're watching Springfield coming up with the illegals down there next week, next couple weeks, whole month of it. I don't know if we'll be down there. I'm going to try. Ohio's a battleground state this year, whether you guys know it or not. Casey Pooch versus Vivek, May 5th. It's about immigration all over this place. It's about elections. That's the big stuff happening right now. And I'm going to run out of breath.
Gotcha. Yeah. Woo! So obviously we don't need a FOIA request for this. They've already got everything that they need.
Yep.
So they're going to go through and again, attack it from two different sides, so that one, he can show that he was right, and two, so that they can't manipulate anything to show that he was wrong, or try to make it seem like he did something wrong. This is the last video for this before we move on to our next segment. Let's see. That's not what I did.
For one moment, the thing that eats him alive is that he knows he won that 2020 election. And he just wants it to be proven. So now he's sitting down, and Marco Rubio and everybody's sitting there and saying, sir, they've got all the oil. They've got all the minerals. They're trying to take it in Russia. They're trying to take it in Iran. They're trying to take it in China. And then somebody else said, sir, all those natural minerals we want, they got them there down in Venezuela. We're going to need them. Then you got somebody else who got up there, maybe it's Pam Bondi, and said, I just want to remind everybody, this guy is indicted. We've got, court ruling. We could go get him. I mean, weapons charges, drug trafficking, narco terrorism. It's all there for us to go get. But somebody raised their hand and they said, Mr. President, do you remember that thing, the 2020 election? Of course I do. Do you remember a woman named Sidney Powell, who is the lawyer for General Michael Flynn? Of course I do. Do you remember what the premise of her whole election integrity, election stolen was? Can you remind me of that again? She said all eyes should point down to Venezuela and the Dominion systems. Play that video for me again.
And hardly wait to put forth all the evidence we have collected on Dominion, starting with the fact it was created to produce altered voting results in Venezuela for Hugo Chavez, and then shipped internationally to manipulate votes for purchase in other countries, including this one. It was funded by money from Venezuela and Cuba, and China has a role in it also. We have staggering statistical evidence. We have staggering testimony from witnesses, including one who was personally in briefings when all of this was discussed and planned, beginning with Hugo Chavez and how it was designed there, and then saw it happening in this country. As soon as the state shut down on election night and stopped counting, those are the states where the most egregious problems occurred.
There's so many reasons why what happened over the weekend was such a smart play. We need to protect the people of the United States against the drugs that are coming in. We need to protect the sovereignty of the United States against our adversaries who want to steal all the natural resources out of Venezuela and take the Venezuela people and throw them into the gutter. Don't ever forget that Venezuela used to be one of the most rich, robust countries in the world. Socialism brought it to its knees. Dirty con men like Bernie Sanders and like Mamdani. Don't ever forget that. Also, there was a great reason to go in there, because if our elections are ever going to be real again, we need to get to the core issue. And Donald J. Trump is dead set on getting that answer before his days are over in that White House.
With the sides. Oh my goodness. Where's that sound coming from?
Bruh.
That's not me, is it?
Which sound?
There's a sound coming out of somewhere. Oh, there it is. Never mind.
You got a tab playing.
Yeah, I got a tab playing somewhere. I'm like, where the hell is that music coming from?
I think it's
No.
dude. Here's the thing.
Now I look like a crazy person.
My dude, you like the time? Did you like the timing of the chair leave and the comeback with the beer?
Mhm.
All right, my bro call. I knew some of the Q people went crazy with the JFK Jr. stuff, but that election was the Dominion takeover of New York, of NYS. What is that? What is NYS? We're going to have to get an answer on that. Dominion goes back to NYS and the switch over for Hillary versus JFK Jr. There's some deep QAnon lore, New York State. Okay, I get it now. There's some deep QAnon lore. And what Call's referring to in the crazies in QAnon was there was some original Anon that came along and that had a particular hash for his when he was posting on 4chan or 8kun or whatever. And it was the same every time. 8kun, like KUN. You people.
What do you mean, you people? No, go ahead.
And eventually what happens is that hash changed. And it was no longer able to verify whether it was the same person posting at a certain point. And so eventually, they're like, Call's one of the guys that's like, okay, the original first, like the Q 1.0, not Q 2.0 or any of the other ones. And there was some stuff that was interesting at the very beginning of all of that. And the QAnon thing is so deep, I'd have to even go back and go into it. But
we tried to do 3 episodes on this.
3 episodes on it. And there's a lot there that is like, nobody ever talked about the fact that 7th PSYOP division and all of this other stuff was kind of like in a general involved in all these things like around QAnon. It's like all these people were like so close to they were like at the you knew they were at the bonfire because they smelled like smoke, but you couldn't prove it, that kind of thing. Flynn and all of them. And I have never trusted Flynn and Kash Patel and a bunch of these guys because of a lot of what happened with QAnon was they told us, trust the plan, don't do anything. We're just going to take care of all this corruption. And then Biden was in office. And then we had to go through all of that and the lockdown, all the craziness where they told us, don't come out, don't do anything. Just sit back and let the patriots liberate the country. And I still don't believe in most of that. But when we start seeing some of these kinds of claims getting close, it's like, don't string me out, bro. I've been through this before. Either produce results or get off of it. Because if they do this again to us and they say, oh, we've got this in the bag, and then it all goes in the tank, I'm just going, you won't see me on the internet. I'll be done. I'll just be done. I will not, you will not hear me talk about this ever again. I'll go off in the woods and just hunt deer the rest of my days. That's all I'll do. You won't ever see me again. So basically, yeah, like a lot of the Q guys are out here like, and the proofs and the old Q drops. And I'm like, guys, just let Trump do his job. Don't do this to us a second time. People go to jail, cool. If we bust some major fraud ring and all this other stuff that they said, and it's not even, I can keep going. Stop it, man. Stop it. End this segment.
What's going on, folks? AK with Roman Nation here. This week is powered by Salty Roots Tallow, a brand that brings skincare back to the basics of nature and nourishment. At Salty Roots, their mission is to craft a premium American-made skincare products harnessing the nourishing power of grass-fed tallow and natural minerals for clean, holistic health. Now, they are committed to sourcing the finest, sustainably produced ingredients from U.S. farms and blending them with nature's mineral-rich treasures to create pure, effective skincare that promotes radiant skin and overall well-being. And trust me, you can feel that mission with every product. Their Dead Sea bath salts combine pure Dead Sea and Sierra sea salts with essential oils and herbs for a spa-grade mineral soak that melts away stress. They also have an activated charcoal bath soak that purifies, recharges, and cleans out impurities and leaves your skin silky smooth. In fact, I even have a mustache and beard oil made with eucalyptus mint to moisturize even my horrible dry skin to the point where I don't feel any urge to scratch and irritate myself more than I need to. So if you're ready to treat your skin the way that nature intended, visit saltyrootstallow.com and use the promo code ROMA to get 10% off individual items to help the small businesses of Middle America thrive in this crazy economy. That's saltyrootstallow.com. Get back to your roots naturally. Oh, you can see me. Let's go.
For Truth or Fake here on France 24, our daily fact-checking segment, and I'm joined here in the studio by Catalina Marchand-Deabreu. In today's segment, Dominion versus Fox News. That's making the headlines still. What were the wild allegations made by Fox News during the 2020 US elections to start off with?
Well, James, Fox News and Dominion Voting Systems settle a defamation lawsuit for $787.5 million. The case exposed how Fox News promoted lies about the 20...
Hold on a second. I just had an epiphany. I completely forgot about that. So all this stuff that we just talked about before, if that all comes to light, guess who's giving Fox back their money? And on top of that, this would completely destroy that company.
It should.
Like it would, like they literally would have to go back to etching their votes on a rock.
In honor of our Back to the Future reference of the bump of this segment, they will go the way of the DeLorean.
Those cars were so underpowered. I don't know why they used that one.
They were built out of they were the Cybertruck before the Cybertruck, built out of stainless steel. They were tanks.
Dominion News, formerly known as Fox News.
Dominion News.
Elizabeth, I love it. No, that's what we used to do in the old days of what was it, the midday rush?
They'll change. See what'll happen is Fox will own them, and they'll change the name to 20th Century Elections.
Yeah, so last time on Past, Present, Future, we traced a thread that begins in the early Cold War and winds all the way into the current moment. Because got to remember, in episode 1, we defined how the U.S. learned to mix ideology with security, setting off a century-long pattern, right? Containment, intervention, covert action, regime change. That was like kind of like the circle, right? And we saw how those impulses shaped how you intervene in different countries, say like Iran, Guatemala, Chile, and all the way up until now, with Venezuela. So how that mindset blurred the lines between foreign policy goals and national security language. Then in episode 2, we shifted from historical genesis to how those patterns showed up in like today's policies, right? We explored how cartels and state actors are labeled as national security threats, how political narratives were shifted because they wanted to embrace intervention under the banner of counterterrorism. The guides of national security, kind of like where that started. Well, it didn't start, but they kind of like defined it in the Patriot Act, right? And then how that forged in, from the Cold War. The U.S. still shapes its actions abroad, and at home, but we connect the dots between foreign policy and legal tools like foreign terrorist organization designations and the political fractures that are driving how Americans think about their national security, what they think about violence, what they think about, how America should move forward, right? So that was the present. So both episodes prepared us to see how modern conflicts aren't random and how they're descendants of long policy lineage and regime changes, and whether those things were good or bad.
Right.
So tonight we're going to start part 3 by applying that lens to one of the most consequential things that happened this century, basically, which is the Middle East. We all know about that, and how we won and lost. 9/11, what we learned about the cost and consequences of U.S. intervention, and then the interventions into Iraq and Afghanistan, the two of the longest military commitments in American history. And it's not even the technologically advanced army couldn't guarantee stability simply just by removing the leaders, right? Because we're not just talking about leaders. They were trying to change the way that the Middle East worked, trying to make them into Saudi Arabia. You can't do that. There's a lot of reasons why there's a bunch of problems in the Middle East. And most of it goes back to ideology. Every time. Because the ones that left the Stone Age and decided to go with the rest of the world, yeah, they made their money. They ended up getting their power. They ended up getting nuclear bombs. They ended up getting all these things. And what happened to the rest of them? Oh, we're just going to leave you behind and just stomp all over your ideology, stomp all over your morals, stomp whatever those morals are. All right. I don't know. I'm not from the Middle East. I'm not Muslim. Right. But at some point there was a clash, and one side seems to have all the power because they decided to sell their soul, so to speak, in their own words. And now, if you're wondering why we have all these issues with terrorism or whatnot, and death to America and all these chants over there, is because of that, or at least that's partially the issue. So, where do you go from here? So what does the future entail? How do you decide what's best? Do we stop intervening in other countries, which is what most of Americans want? They want to start focusing on our own country now because they feel like we've already done everything. We've literally protected the world for nearly 100 years.
And left ourselves now open to internal conflict. So, because this is the thing people forget is many of the people that are under some kind of an oath of service that are fed in our government, that oath includes protecting this country and the Constitution from enemies, foreign and domestic. When was the last time we really had a domestic enemy, a domestic issue that we had to deal with? We all live fairly happy lives and prosperous, regardless of how much we complain about taxes and things and the grind of everything and complain about whatever. We still live better than most of the world in the United States for all of our crap food and the things that are degrading now that are still better than most places to be. That says a lot, and I'm okay with living a little lean. It's fine by me. I've roughed it. You've been out in the woods where we've roughed it before and going 4-wheeling and all of that. It's not a big deal for a lot of us who have, had that experience, either growing up or whatnot. But some people, all they know is comforts of first world living. And we just forget that you have to look internal. It's not as easy as just let people in. If I just came up, if I busted in your house and you had no idea who I was and I was sleeping on your couch and I said, I live here now, you'd be like, no.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. You know, I mean, that's exactly right. We yeet them right out. And Tom Homan made a good point about that, saying, look, we're gonna have a zero tolerance policy at this point. You
Right.
know?
And the thing
So-
is that though these rules have been in place that were voted on by both Democrats and Republicans, right? So the fact that he's actually following the law, and when you look at the protests and things that are happening right now, I leave my emotion out of it. It's like, okay, what is the rule of law? And if you don't like it, what is it that you can do about it? But there's like this, there's like a bunch of subversion tactics that we literally are looking at and watching them do in real time, where it's like, why aren't you doing the very same thing that put those laws in the first place? You put them in. So why are you fighting them now? What's the problem? What do we pay you for in Washington? Right? This is why I always steer away from the presidency. This is why I try not to put too much pressure or relieve some pressure from Trump the same way I do with Biden, because they can only do so much.
Right. And to the point you were bringing up is, you know, we're at the point where we're trying to look internal. These are the things we're looking at internally now. We want to, our regimes need change. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Other regimes that we've been messing around with, yeah, there's probably been good reason in some way. And then somebody had to do a risk assessment. Well, what if we flip it this way? What if we flip it that way? What if we don't act? What if we do act? And then there's generally somebody who's on the take that's going to make some cash out of it. That's going to be pushing their agenda on top of it. And it's going to come out the way it's going to come out.
It's always going to happen.
But the people also have to be, you have to pay attention to the people that live in your country. Because as soon as you lose confidence, if you have a general vote of no confidence from your own people, that's where things fall in on itself. And that's what we're trying to avoid in this era of the United States politics when concerning regime changes.
Exactly. Because I think that Republican Party is on the right track, but they're moving extremely slow. Right? You can already see from Marco Rubio when he first came in to now, there's been a lot of change in the Republican Party. It just happened over a long period of time, right? Whereas with the Democrats, they have the opposite problem where they've got, you know, these old timers that have been in there for years and years and years and years and years and did not develop the next generation as well as we all thought they did. And because of that, now they're having an internal conflict, all right, that people aren't thinking about. Is part of the reason why you've got the establishment Democrats kind of flailing around and trying to do whatever they can to hold on to whatever power they've got left. And then you've got people like Mondami in New York who's coming in and saying, see, we need change in our own party. But it's the change that I'm telling you right now, you really don't want. Look at Virginia. Look at what's happening there. There are people. I live in the DMV area. Okay, there are people in Virginia where they got their first bill this month for their power and their electric and stuff, and it nearly doubled. Some places even tripled because of the new tax laws that they implemented. I've been saying for a while, we're so blessed not to have explosive tragedies other than areas I go through so often. I pray for this country every day. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
We're blessed.
Yeah, we definitely are. And so now, obviously, the middle class, upper class, they're kind of like, okay, that's just a little extra. We'll just not have my second latte of the day. But when it comes to the working class Americans, they're going to get crushed. Because an extra $200 a month may not, you know, to regular everyday Americans may not seem like that much. But when it comes to working class, where that $200 makes you have to decide of whether, you know, you have to pay your bills or if you have to put gas in your car to go to work to make money to pay your bills, then you have a problem. And I just don't understand. I don't know how many examples that need to be done before they start realizing, you know what, I am getting screwed. But then they outsource their issues to something that has absolutely nothing to do with it, like billionaires. Right? There's always going to be billionaires. They're not going to go away.
The oligarch, the lord class, the aristocrats, the oligarchs, the higher end class, the people that own infrastructure, that have assets, that are independently wealthy, not in cash flow, but in material, possession and competence, they will always be a step ahead of everybody.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny. My wife talked about a story of, and I'll be honest with you, they weren't wrong. All right. They stood everybody in a line. It was like a social exercise, right? They stood everybody in a line, and then they asked a series of about 20 questions. And they basically said, okay, take a step forward if, you know, you have two parents. Take a step forward if both your parents have degrees. Take a step forward if, you know, and then you kind of got like at the beginning, it was kind of all the same. But then as you went into the 18th, 19th, and 20th question, you started to see the spread amongst everybody. Right. And then the very last thing that the person said was, he pulled out a dollar bill and said, here's new money, come and get it. And there was one person that was all the way up at the front, and he just goes, that's reality. That is reality for a lot of people, not just in America, but I mean, it's 10 times worse in probably the second best country. But what you have to think about is opportunity, because in a lot of those countries, there's money, but there's not a lot of opportunity. All right. We're in very rare air where we have a lot of money and a lot of opportunity. The thing is that opportunity, they expect to be what they want it to be versus actually going out and sourcing it for themselves. And that seems to be the biggest problem with like the working class, middle class. You know, they want to keep up with the Joneses, so they're going to go out instead of, you know, opening up an IRA or opening up a fund for your children to go to college early or whatnot. They want to get the new Jordans. They want to get their Xbox, and they want to, you know, they want to buy all of these things that aren't necessarily going to put them in a position to succeed. Now, when I would say about 15 years ago, when I wasn't in the position I'm in now, all right, I did go out and buy that Xbox. But you want to know why I did that? I did it because I knew I was going to spend a hell of a lot more money going out to the bars every single night, blowing all my money on things that
you're doing harm reduction on yourself. You're just like, you know what? Instead of going out and blowing all my cash on drinking and hanging out and stuff, I'm gonna blow a little bit of cash now up front and just play the crap out of it and keep myself inside.
Yep. I got myself a gaming system and I got myself a gym membership. And that's all I did. I worked, I saved money, gym membership, played video games. Every Friday, went out, got myself a 12-pack that lasted me out throughout the weekend.
You got yourself a 12-pack, all right, I bet, when you're at the gym.
Dude, I did have a 12-pack last year, and I'll tell you what, it turned into a keg, and then I almost
don't do that to yourself.
Had my own gravitational pull, so I had to get rid of that. But my point is, I mean, we're talking about regime change here. I know that we kind of went way off topic, but it's all full circle. You can't go into another country and expect them to play to run their country by your rules, because it's not necessarily your country to begin with, right? This isn't like, NATO coming into a European country and trying to free you from some kind of oppressive state that you've been in for 80 years, right? The Middle East has always been their own kind of setup. They have their own religious practices. Most of their religion ties into their laws, and it's always been like that since Jesus walked the earth. So it's one thing to help them, it's another thing to try and change their ideology, and that's where you have the issue. Now if we go over here to Maduro, it's a little bit different because this is clearly resource based, right? And a lot of it has to do with that, but that's the reason why I played that last video, to kind of like turn into what we're trying to do now, which is get information on our adversaries and what they're trying to do, and trying to kneecap us over here in our own hemisphere.
Yeah,
I think
and
that's the other thing.
That's always been a thing. There have been some conversations I've overheard people saying, "Oh, McCarthy didn't go far enough when it comes to communists," because these tactics that are being used today, they're not communist in the traditional sense, but they are communist in the tactical sense. They're a new version. Like communist revolution ratchets forward always. It's always something different. The way they think it's going to go down isn't necessarily the way it's going to go down. That's a reference to It's Going Down. There's an organization. If you look up It's Going Down, it's another one of these left-wing things. But yeah, with regime change today now, we're looking, our own regime has changed to the point where the old, just like you were saying about the establishment Democrats are out. They're on their way out. They've got these new radicals that are coming in. They don't know how to deal with, so they just kind of have to go along with. It's freaking crazy that to think that we are constantly trying to stop a nation from launching or gathering up nuclear weapons. Yeah, and we're always going to be in that kind of a flux with certain groups of people. The modern ability to delete entire countries to people who think that they should bathe the world in blood to have their Messiah come back, or the 12th Imam, or whatever. That's the particular flavor of Islam in Iran. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So our regime change, some of our regime change policy today isn't going to change. We're sending stuff over to Iran already right now. Okay, Middle East is, like you were saying, is going to be what it is. But over here, we're talking about South America. If the entry to Venezuela and going in the rest of the cartels and showing them who's boss and ending a lot of the systemic decades and decades, better of a century's worth of corruption now.
CIA was here.
The CIA stuff, all of that, yeah. I hope the best comes of it, but I know there's always going to be something that is an unaccounted for, slap back, clap back, some kind of, if somebody makes a deal, like Iran Contra, or anything we did with Mujahideen, or, we went in, we sold weapons to cartels so we could fight commies, and then it turns out they're worse than the commies in some ways later, not always, but they're their own thing. Hopefully in South America, because their culture is not too far away from North America. South America isn't. Why? Because settled by Spaniards, and they brought Christian they brought the church to the South America. So there is a kind of society down there where I guarantee you that if you drop me in the middle of Brazil tomorrow, I'd be able to, I'd be fine, because I'd go find a church. I'd be fine. I'd figure it out. Somebody'd be there to help me. There'd be no problem. You drop me in the Middle East, I'm hiding somewhere in a sand hole praying to God that somebody finds me. That's the thing. It's like I have
Got like a sore thumb.
yeah. Like down there, like, obviously like 5 minutes. Yeah. Even if I can't speak Brazilian or whatever and I sound like an American, I can at least go. If you just look around, I mean, where is it in South America? They've got the big Jesus statue on the mountain, right? Everywhere you go, there's a church somewhere. There is no safe haven for an American to just drop him in the middle of the Middle East, unless you're in Israel, and even then it can get sketchy. But, so yeah, like if the regime change stuff we're looking at now, I think is a better outlook than what it's been. But I still think there's going to be problems moving forward.
There is.
It is.
It is, and I guess to close it out, how like where do we go from here, right? Like, because regime change is going to be much harder nowadays with the internet and with like people with countries sabotaging themselves and others.
Yep.
Like there's no way that you can truly do that without really explaining yourself, especially if you have the power to do so. And I don't even think Britain has the power to do that anymore.
I don't know. Europe's in a bad spot. They're in a really bad spot. They're not. There's a couple of countries in Europe that I think will probably do okay for a while. Poland's one. They're pretty based. They're taking care of themselves. They're holding on to their national identity. They're holding on to their national Christian identity to some degree. Czech Republic is pretty dope. Czech Republic has concealed carry permits for their citizens. Like, that's kind of awesome. You don't hear too much about them, but the rest of Europe is in this weird spot where they have brought in so many refugees for so long. They're not willing to deal with them. It's going to be awful for Europe for a while. Here we might be okay because we're isolated from the rest of the world on from coast to coast. Oh, and if we have to deal with Canadians and Mexicans, we'll be all right. What's that?
Read that.
Czech Republic has one of the lowest gun homicide rates in the world, 0.076 to 0.095 per 100,000 inhabitants. 2021 to 2022. Despite having relatively high gun ownership for Europe, roughly 300,000 illegal guns. Country maintains very low firearm-related crime rates. I would love to go see Czech Republic. Yeah, 10 million people. It's still we're still number one. United States is like it's like 2 guns per person.
Probably more than that. That we know of.
Right, that we know of in private ownership, civilian ownership. That's over 400 million guns in the hands of United States citizens compared to the rest of the world.
And the thing is that when you talk about like per capita, right? Everybody always gets that wrong. They always get it wrong. They always talk about just the total amount of violence, but don't really give like the true value. But if there's one thing you've learned about the United States, what are we? We're like 5th or 6th in the world when it comes to that. But if you were to take out 4 cities in the United States, it would drop blue cities. Well, I mean, regardless,
the top 4 crime-ridden cities, they have 2 things in common. One, they have the highest amount of gun control, and they have the highest amount of gun violence.
Exactly. If you took those top 4 cities out, we would be in the bottom 5 in the world.
Yeah. we'd be sitting right there next to the checks. But like, check us out.
So that's why I always wonder, like, where are they getting their information from? Because if it's those 4 cities, all right, I mean, clearly Chicago, Detroit, Memphis, New Orleans, those 4, right? If you're saying that is running rampant in those 4, if you took them out of the equation, drop us into the bottom 5, where are you getting your information from?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, nice try, but you've essentially backed yourself into a corner by stating those statistics in front of everybody on camera. Now that we know, go ahead.
Now that we know, go ahead. I'm gonna ask a question.
But now that we know this, and the same thing with like child deaths, right? Always, oh, look at that. It's the second worst behind vehicles, right? But what they don't tell you is that they incorporate 18 and 19-year-olds. You take those out of the equation, and it's almost non-existent.
Yeah. Here's my question about keeping in the realm of regime change and civil wars and unrest and all of that. What do you think? And even with, I'll put it this way, even with the amount of civil unrest that we do have, is it not amazing how few people have actually gone out in the street and started shooting? Compared to places like Brazil, where you could just be in traffic and a guy's got a Draco defending himself from 3 motorcycle dudes trying to hijack him.
Mm-hmm.
I just watched that yesterday. Okay? Like, some of these other countries that have crazy amounts of violence, we just don't have like that. Like, we have road rage incidents where like a guy will come out and be dumb and act a fool and end up on a slab. And self-defense law covers a lot of those things, and in some ways, and other times it's unfortunate. You have gangbangers. You have like these little isolated incidents where it's just like, okay, you have one dirtbag that decided he was going to use a firearm inappropriately. But what we haven't seen, even from the Black Panthers that showed up in Minneapolis, they're not open. There's been one incident where a group of radical leftists have opened fire on law enforcement in recent time, and it was in Texas. Was it Texas or was it Alabama? It's one of the two. Which one was that? I want to make sure I get that right. And I know there was the thing where was the one cop thing where they were trying to build a training center in the South?
Well, and it's funny you mentioned that.
That was literally it. But we don't see it in the streets with mass protests.
Oh no, that was in Georgia.
It was Atlanta.
It was in Georgia. I remember that now. And even though you say that, and as crazy as people are like, oh, the crazy left, even they're not doing it. So it's like, and neither is the racist, crazy far right that wants to go. You don't see that either. The only thing you see are just random acts. All right, random acts go, school shootings, like the school shootings, the statistics on that have been broadened.
Right. You get some of that tinfoil MK Ultra lone wolf guy that just comes out of nowhere, It's like
or if it's a gang that just happens to be in front of a school property in the city, which by the way is on a city block. It's not like it's on its own independent land.
Right.
It's considered a school shooting, and you're like,
right. Well, what we don't have is like guys in Toyotas showing up like they do in Somalia. Even the Somalians that are here don't do that.
M60s on the back.
That they do over there here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I get it. I get what you're saying. Nobody's going to come here and regime change the United States except for the United States.
Right.
Right. And we have that every 4 years. And there's a reason why we have that every 4 years, because
If we
regard-
didn't, we
Yeah.
would be like every other country with blood in the streets every couple decades.
Yeah, exactly. The only time that we've seen mass issues was when foreign entities come into the United States. You know, when you look at 9/11, when you look at the Boston bombings, when you look at they're all international. It's not here.
Yeah.
So
The worst
so-
mass casualty events we have are tornadoes and hurricanes and natural weather events and fires and things. It's rare that it's something like a 9/11. And to think that we have the kind of control that where we can have a population that owns enough firearms to literally arm every person on our census with at least one firearm, maybe two, and we still don't get out in the street and just go like on a regular basis or in the midst of our current civil unrest. There's still we've had Alex Preddy, who he happened to have it on him. You know, the Kyle Rittenhouse thing was kind of like a weird one-off, right? But that was a group of guys that were there to protect one property. And then you had Groskowitz, who had brought his firearm, which he wasn't even legal to have the firearm to begin with. But even he didn't use his firearm. It was Rittenhouse defending himself from a sex offender, a domestic abuser, and a guy swinging a skateboard. I mean, he just happened to have an AR-15. You guys brought the wrong tool to that fight. What we don't have is like in mass. We don't have lines of like Antifa and Proud Boys or Black Panthers and Oath Keepers. We don't have internal factions like that just going at each other. What we generally have is people doing crime, and then people get upset. Maybe something goes down the wrong way. People go out in the streets, and then you have to put cops out there to protect federal buildings or other things and keep angry mobs from burning stuff down. They still don't bring guns. Of all the guns that we have, they still don't bring guns.
Mm-hmm.
Because the guns are not the problem. That's the point.
Bingo! Past, present, and future. All right, so if you guys noticed that we had a theme tonight, and that was with Maduro, but also with Dominion voting machines, and what that means for the future of this country, because clearly we have an issue. One, with immigration. All right. Number two, what the right is actually trying to fight. Right. It's clear their problem is the illegal voting measures. Right. That's their focus. All right. But what does that actually mean if the Trump administration is right? Okay. Because if they're right, that has implications for the next presidency.
It could.
It could. And
it'll take an act of Congress for Trump to get what he wants, but the 17th Amendment is on the chopping block. Or at least they've got, and those that don't know, 17th Amendment is, and we talked about it a couple times this week on the rants. The Senate was not under that amendment, before that amendment was supposed to be appointed by the state legislatures, not directly elected by the people. The Senate would be a supermajority. So you would have a 2/3 vote there. And then we have restructuring of districts that'll only give it max 14 extra votes to the Republicans if it goes very generously towards them. I think if it's proven that these people acted in malicious fashion against Donald Trump between at least in the 2020 election, I think you'll have a huge chunk of the center of this country go the other direction. And even if Congress doesn't pass a law by the end of his term that says he can have a third term, he may just campaign by himself regardless, and we'll see how many people write his name in.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then it'll be a contested election, and then it'll have to go to Congress anyway. I'm
Now,
just saying,
again,
like that's
this
the Hail
is-
Mary pass. That's the Hail Mary pass.
Hail Mary from the right. But I think when a lot of people were talking about, there's not going to be a 2028 election, I actually thought it was in the opposite direction. I thought it was because, authoritarian regime going to get taken over. But no, this one's going to be settled by legislation in the courts. And especially if it's found that there is enough votes from the 2020 election that were switched over because of the type of scandals that they were talking about. This is unprecedented territory. Everything's on the table. Everything. Right? And it would have to be, because either that would have to happen or Congress would have to make a change. But there's no way out of it. One of those two things will have to happen, or you're going to leave it up to the Supreme Court to decide what happens. And you don't want that to happen. Even I don't want that to happen.
Because what they say goes.
And
When the Supreme Court makes their decision, it becomes case law, and case law is very hard to overturn. We happen to have lived in a very specific, special time of history where we got to see Roe v. Wade overturned. And that's probably all we're going to see. That's very close. Probably the only thing we'll get to see overturned as far as a Supreme Court ruling. Because they don't like to overturn previous court rulings. They just don't. Unless there's very good reason to, and that one rose to the occasion.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But yeah, so this is the complete opposite of what we thought. It's going to be something like this that's going to shake the foundation of the country. And if that does happen, and it proves, I wouldn't even say half the country, it proves, the 30% of the country or 35% of the country that said that it was a hoax, and it ends up not being, your what would you call it? Your judgment is no longer in question. It's now obsolete. So even if you have a problem with it, well, you should have thought about that way back when. You had the opportunity and you didn't. So that's not on the victim side to just deal with it.
There has to be some kind of restitution. Trump's going to have to be made whole if this comes. The American people will have to be made whole in restitution of some kind if it turns out that 2020 was a sham, and whoever was involved, mercy on your soul, because Trump will come down on you like a ton of bricks if it comes to light and he starts getting traction. Anyway, we could go on with that.
Exactly. But anyways, make sure you go to riseofmiddleamerica.com, see our myriad of shows, history to news, pop culture, sports. We got everything for your needs. Upper right-hand corner, that's where our socials are at. So you see those in those 4 dots down at the bottom. If you want to support us, make sure that you go to our merch site and look up our great merch that we've got for you guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification button. Yes.
Don't forget Salty Roots.
Salty Roots tallow. I got the beard oil. I always have to do this, but I have to do the meme where the guy's going,
Yep, and I got the other one where he's behind the tree. This is the coffee vanilla whip tallow. Salty. It's the grass-fed finished beef tallow, jojoba oil, Dead Sea salts from the Dead Sea.
There it is.
Coffee and vanilla.
Absolutely.
This is great stuff for your skin. It's great stuff.
All right. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for joining us tonight. We will see you next week for Trump's third term. Peace.
Hustle in my veins, no rest, no dream, trying to make a way. Whole team gotta eat. No sleep, gotta keep going. No sleep, till the world know it. No sleep, till the world know it. No sleep, till the world know it. I've been moving like a clock, don't stop, no breaks, no rest, no time to flop. Gotta get it while I'm breathing, never taking a loss. See the pain in my eyes, but the vision stay locked. Ain't nobody finna hand me a thing. Came from the bottom, I rose through the rain. Hustle like I never had a meal on my plate. Now we eating so good that the hunger remains. Fast lane, never slowing my pace. Tell them I was built for the chase. Every night trying to double my worth. Put my name in the sky, make it shake up the earth. Oh, I ain't getting no sleep till I touch that peak. Oh, I've been grinding all week. Ain't no stopping me. Late nights turn to early moans. Put the work in till the break of dawn. They was sleeping on the kid, now they call my